All right, so we've certainly talked politics, but now let's spend a few minutes diving into some of the legal questions that still surround former President Trump. And his Trump Tower remarks today, was lashing out again at the judge, vowing to appeal, calling the whole thing a scam. We have a couple of attorneys who've been quite helpful to us in our coverage of this trial for weeks. Joining us again today is Dante Mills here in the studio. Misty Marris also with us. Hey, Misty. I want to start on the tablet in front of me, and we'll project this up on the screen on the question. Let's get this out of the way right away. Of sentencing coming up on July 11th. Is jail time, Misty, on the table? This particular analysis that we have up happens to be from Norm Eisen, looking at 1 in 10 falsifying business records cases ending in prison time. Do you think it's being considered, Misty?
It could be being considered, but it's ultimately unlikely because the judge is going to look at the nature of the crime, that it is a non-violent crime, and it's also going to look at how these types of cases and convictions have been handled in the past. So there's a process, there's sentencing guidelines, and something that happens is that Donald Trump will have to meet with the probation department. They'll go through various factors. The probation department will prepare a report. Alvin Bragg will make a recommendation, and the defense will obviously look for leniency, probation, or a suspended sentence. Now, the one thing is, one of those factors is remorse and taking accountability. So this is always a strange path for a defendant who's appealing a conviction. But I do think one of the things that could work against Trump on this front is his multiple violations of the gag order, that willingness to just flout the court rules. So all of that will be taken into consideration, but I ultimately think we will not see jail time.
Dante, what do you say?
I think there's a possibility there will be. And if you really look at the situation, if we're talking about, Connell, we're talking about fairness in the legal process. You now have a convicted felon on 34 counts who won, and Missy just talked about it, shows no remorse, not accepting responsibility at all. So you think about me as a defense attorney going into sentencing, what do I tell the judge to get a lesser sentence? In this case, you can't say my client is remorseful, right? You can't say that he's away from the activity because he was convicted of something that has to do with rigging an election, right? Election interference. He's now running for office again. So if the judge wants to make sure that he deters this kind of behavior, I think he has to give a serious sentence. Otherwise, Donald Trump can do it again during this election process, knowing there's no real penalty for him.
What about the comments? Missy mentioned the gag order. What about the comments today that were clearly about Michael Cohen in the Trump Tower remarks? I want to play that for a moment and get both of your take on whether this helps or hurts at sentencing. Let's watch.
By the way, this was a highly qualified lawyer. Now, I'm not allowed to use his name because of the gag order. But, you know, he's a sleazebag. Everybody knows that. Took me a while to find out. But he was effective. He did work. But he wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. You know, they like to use the word fixer. He wasn't a fixer. He was a lawyer. At the time, he was a fully accredited lawyer. Now, he got into trouble not because of me. He got into trouble because he made outside deals, and he had something to do with taxi cabs and medallions.
All right. Misty, what do you say about that particular comment? He said, oh, I can't say his name. Everybody knows he's talking about Cohen, the key witness in the case. Gag order says don't talk about the witnesses. I'm not sure if the judge will take that up as a violation of a gag order or not, or does it have an impact on sentencing? What do you say, Misty?
Well, sleazebag isn't a legal term, but I think you're right. I think we all know exactly who he's speaking about, of course, from the context. And so, yes, I think it technically would violate the gag order. The gag order is still in place. I don't know if the judge will actually consider that a violation now, because part of the rationale is to ensure that witnesses are unfettered in their testimony, aren't being intimidated. So now that that part of the trial is over, it might not be something the judge actually says is a violation. However, it could be a factor in the sentencing.
Exactly. So what you guys are talking about here is, and Dante made this point, you know, you go in, you want to make your case as a defense lawyer of why you don't want the most stringent sentence, 4 years in prison. You don't want to have any prison time. You want to get probation probably out of this. So this doesn't help, Dante, right? That type of comment?
It doesn't. And we also know that the judge is listening to Donald Trump's comments. We know that because during the trial, there came a time where Donald Trump said he couldn't testify and then went into court that next morning, and the judge had a conference saying he heard those comments. So we know that the judge is going to hear everything Donald Trump says. And if he's out there bashing the system, saying that these jurors were wrong, saying that he's not accepting responsibility, and then again, like I said, he's running in another election, the judge is going to take that into consideration.
Let me ask you, Dante, one other question. As someone who's worked in New York and defended criminal clients in New York, probably in that building, right? The New York Times had a headline, I'll put it up, about Trump's legal team, essentially saying that they blew it. Is that right? Do you think Todd Blanche and company blew this case? It was on them? Or they didn't have a chance going in? I mean, how do you look at it?
I can tell you this. Trump's legal team, they're phenomenal lawyers. Their reputation, their history, their track record shows that their legal acumen, they know what they're doing. The problem is, I don't know if there was a defense available, so they went with, if you don't have a defense, you blame the witnesses or whoever is going to come in. They tried to discredit Michael Cohen, but I don't know if there was a plan of action that would have made anybody believe that Trump did not know what was going on with that payment and everything around it. So I don't know if they had much opportunity to begin with. They used what they had and tried to discredit the witnesses. But reminder, their last line of the closing argument was, don't send someone to prison for this. I think they were trying to say, all right, he may have done it, but just cut him some slack. But obviously it didn't work.
Misty, I'm going to change the subject just for a moment before we wrap up this discussion. We're going to talk in a minute. We're going to have a live report on this case of this treadmill dad, right? We've talked about this a lot. This guy from New Jersey who was accused of having his son run on the treadmill because he said his son was too fat, supposedly. And then the son ends up dying. And now the verdict is in, and this manslaughter conviction, aggravated manslaughter conviction for this treadmill dad. Before our live report, which is coming up in a minute, give us your thoughts on this case, Misty, which I know you've been following.
Yeah, I've been following it. What a horrible case. And the jury actually, in their deliberations, had asked to watch that video again. So I did expect a conviction. The question was, is he going to be convicted on murder or aggravated manslaughter? So we know that the defense raised the issue of whether or not there was causation. Did these acts actually cause the death? Sometimes if you have jurors who disagree in that jury room, they go for what's called the lesser included. And I think that's what happened here. They went for the aggravated manslaughter, which requires a reckless intent instead of the intent to cause serious bodily injury. So not surprised to see a conviction, still very serious, 30-year max, 10 to 30 years, so very, very serious conviction.
All right, Misty, thank you. Dante as well. Thanks for all of that. We'll have more.